Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our first order of business this evening is a presentation from Mrs. Tenniswood on the Summer Learning Program 2012. Mrs. Tenniswood.
Good evening, Dr. Green and members of the board. Summer was not a slow month by any stretch of the imagination. We had a lot going on. And so my first report this evening, I'm very pleased to highlight the 3 levels of summer school that we had occurring. First of all, we held our high school and actually our middle school summer schools at Marine City High School, and we're very appreciative of them hosting as being the host site. The high school program ran from July 10th through August 3rd. The primary purpose of high school summer school is credit recovery. We had 77 high school students enrolled in the program, and we were able to offer 23 different courses. And you can see the breakdown there. 8 English, 6 math, 3 science, and 6 social studies. So a lot of learning was going on during the summer months. How did we accomplish 23 courses? We use E2020 as our primary delivery of instruction. As you recall, E2020 is electronic online learning. So here's a typical outline of what students encounter in E2020. They start their lesson with a vocab review. There's a lecture, taped video delivery, an assignment, quizzes, tests, and a cumulative exam. E2020 is aligned with state and district standards, so students are getting a very comparable delivery of content whether they take the classes during the school year or during the summer. However, I think we do a nice job of balancing out the electronic delivery with having lots of certified staff on hand. So Mike Alley was our site coordinator and did a phenomenal job. We also had 2 teachers, Amy Stilson and Jay McCullough. They were very valuable in providing support for students who might need additional assistance with the E2020. Parents and or students provided their own transportation for the high school program. Tuition was $165 per class for in-district students. We always try to help students who might be in financial needs. You can see we had 23 students receiving grants under free and reduced lunch cost guidelines, WIA, or the St. Clair Goodwill Fund. And at the bottom of this slide is represented our total financial costs and revenue for the program. So our anticipated cost, which covers staffing and a portion of the E2020 licenses, was $13,680. Our revenue was $15,876.25. So how did the program do? We awarded 114 credits to 72 students. 95% of our students completed their courses during summer school. 10 seniors fulfilled graduation requirements as part of the summer school program. All right, so at the same time, we had high school students enrolled in summer school at Marine City High School. We also ran a middle school. You may recall that several years ago, we had middle school students also taking E2020. Quite frankly, it was not all that we hoped for our middle school students. We found that putting middle school students on a computer for 3 hours was not a great use of their time. And so we went back to the drawing board, revamped the program, and this year we provided additional support in reading and math in a 3-hour block. We had 13 6th and 7th grade students enrolled in the program for this first year. We targeted Reader's Workshop with comprehension strategies, and then we also offered mathematics. And in mathematics, we offered instruction in areas that students typically struggle with. We had 2 teachers, Vicki Miller and Nancy Mott, and Mike Alley was the coordinator for that program as well. Comparable tuition structure between our middle and high school program, and again, we were looking for ways to offset costs for students in need, so we did have 1 student who received a grant. So the financial data for the middle school program, our anticipated program costs are $3,550, our revenue $2,145. Since this was our first year with the middle school program, we surveyed our students, which is always interesting after the program, to get their feedback. So there's a few things. The program started at 7:45, and if there was one common thread through all the feedback, it was it's too early. But many of them said it was fun. A couple comments that I really appreciated was one student said, I learned about reading strategies and now I know how to get the gist when I'm reading. Another one said, I'm feeling better about fractions. Many also indicated that they're feeling more comfortable going into the next grade level. And we're going to continue to tweak the program. All right, so we also ran an elementary summer school. The elementary summer school is scheduled later during the summer. The purpose is really to give students a jump start on the coming school year. I'm very pleased with our enrollment this year. It quadrupled almost from last year. We had almost a mini school. We had 106 students at Bell River Elementary, 7 classrooms. Yeah, it was awesome. We had 45 K-1 students, 41 2-3 students, and 24 5 students. And we grouped students, we did some multi-age grouping, and we grouped students primarily according to reading level. So staff, to cover our 106 students, we had 7 teachers, 1 instructional paraprofessional, and we were able to run a shuttle bus from Eddy Elementary up to Bell River so that we were able to help provide transportation from one end of the district to the other. Tuition, our tuition for the elementary program is $100 for our in-district students. We were able to offset tuition costs for students who are attending our 3 Title I buildings. So there's our financial data. Our anticipated program costs are around $12,000, $12,010. Our revenue is $10,375. So what were we doing in elementary? We were really focusing again on Reader's Workshop. It was a split about an hour and 15 minutes reading and an hour with math. So in Reading Workshop, we worked on comprehension strategies, word attack skills, fluency, lots and lots of reading going on, children really engaged. Certainly in math, then we focused again on those areas where typically students struggle at the elementary: place value, developing number sense, basic operations, and fractions. All in all, we're very excited about the progress students made during summer school. We definitely, I think, have some things that work very well in summer school, and we'll continue to tweak particularly that middle school program to make sure we've got great opportunities for additional learning for our students in the summertime. Any questions?
Questions for Mrs. Jones? Mr. Bieber?
On the anticipated cost, does that include the Title I funds that we had received?
Yes.
It did, okay.
Typically, the transportation fees to run the shuttle bus add a little bit into the anticipated cost of the program.
Okay, so truly, all these kids went through summer school, cost us $944.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Mr. Fletcher?
So it starts at 7:45. When does it finish?
For the middle school students, it was a 3-hour block, so 10:45. So basically, they did an hour and 15 minutes of reading, had a quick break, and then an hour and 15 minutes of math. So we got a lot in that 3-hour time frame.
Mr. Folsky?
Thanks.
Was there any more opening for taking students, or was it max, or anybody can go to for all these classes?
That's a good question. The intent of the program is remediation, so we're really working to give students additional opportunities for math and reading. And so with elementary, we invited a lot more students this year, and obviously people were very receptive. Middle school, we invited many more students than elected to attend, but I'm certainly hoping that now that we're modifying the program, that we'll be able to increase student attendance. It's a great opportunity for students who need some additional help to come in over the summer and get that help.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? I have a question on, you mentioned that there were 10 students who earned credits towards graduation. Would those be students who should have graduated in June but didn't and needed the 10 credits, as opposed to they're graduating early because of this?
Yes, correct. It's not credit advancement for purposes of graduation. Okay. Their on-track graduation plan would have been June.
Gotcha. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next item of business is the consent agenda. A motion would be in order to approve the consent agenda, including approval of minutes, payment of bills, schedule of investments, and approval of teachers.
Mr. McCartan, I have a
Yes, Mr.
correction for 2 things. If we could amend the minutes for the, excuse me, if we could amend the minutes for the July 25th meeting. It says Tuesday, July 25th, and it's supposed to be Wednesday, July 25th. And also, let's see, I believe the meeting started at 7:10 p.m. If I remember
Without
correctly.
objection? So a motion would be in order to approve the consent agenda as amended.
So moved.
It's been moved by Mr. Folsky, seconded by Mr. Bieber. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll now pause and recognize anybody wishing to address the board. For those of you unfamiliar with our process, we have these green cards. If you wish to address the board, you can fill one out now. We do have one card. We would invite Mr. Hughes to the microphone. Mr. Hughes.
Good evening. My name is Dwight Hughes. I'm from Moraine City. This is going to be kind of hard for me. I'm having some respiratory problems. But I would first like to show you, I have some pictures here, and I'll pass them around to you guys, and I'll pass them to the audience if you'd like. Things at Moraine City Middle School that should have been done and weren't done and won't be done for a while. I don't understand how they couldn't be done by now. There's a week left until school starts. They should have been looked at. They should have been caught before I caught them. And now I will read my comment. At the June board meeting, I turned in a Freedom of Information request to Dr. Green. My request was quite simple. All information regarding fees obtained from Chartwells and revenue brought in. You see, since East China privatized their lunch services, your tax money now goes to a private company. But if you want to find out how much of it goes to Chartwells, you must pay $260. That's right. Dr. Green said I must pay $260 to get that information. It seems that your tax money means absolutely nothing to our district. Instead, they need to take money from a 17-year-old high school student. Or maybe the price was given to me to keep me from the information. It's funny, though, I know a lady who just requested Dr. Green's contract and a breakdown of his severance. She wasn't charged a dime. If one person is not charged, no one should be charged. This year, our district will face another deficit. Just like last year, buildings may end up being closed, staff will be forced to take cuts, and positions will be consolidated. Why? Because of wasteful spending. Yes, our own Board of Education voted to spend well over $100,000 on our superintendent, who quit. He was not fired. Since when does somebody get over half their salary when they quit? I know a teacher wouldn't. I know a janitor wouldn't, not a secretary, bus driver, maintenance worker, nor groundskeeper. No one but our superintendent. I hope you take that money and sleep well, knowing that 6 bus drivers could work for a year with that money. This Board of Education needs to wake up. The next superintendent contract better not give these ridiculous benefits, and if it does, every one of you who votes yes on it will face a recall by the citizens of East China School District. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Any other comments? We'll move on.
I have a question. I saw.
Is it on the agenda, Mr. Ridgely, or?
Well, it's in regards to what you just said. I wanted to, I saw he forwarded one of the emails to me for the FOIA request, and I thought it was actually something that I would think I don't see why it wouldn't be a good idea to let the public see it, but I would like to make a motion to waive the fee for Mr. Hughes, in this case for that FOIA request. So,
Actually, if you want to put that on a future agenda, we can do that. It's not on tonight's agenda, but if that's something you would like to talk to me about, I'd be happy to listen to you.
I'm not allowed to make a motion.
Motion is out of order. You may make a motion if you wish.
Well, I make a motion that we waive the fee for Mr. Hughes in the case of his FOIA request.
There's been a motion. Is there a support? Motion fails. Move on to reports. Superintendent's report.
Thank you. Thank you to all the volunteers that we had recently for our backpack giveaway. This event was sponsored by the St. Clair Community Foundation, and many families took part. I think we gave away over 400 backpacks, so that was a very nice afternoon, great success. Summer maintenance projects and sinking fund projects are going well. Several projects are complete. We've still got a little bit of time to finish things up, but one thing that happened this summer was smart boards were replaced throughout the district without any cost to the district due to a glitch in the smart boards that Smart was unable to fix. So the Smart company also afforded the district a credit for that inconvenience, so that will be helpful to us as we purchase additional accessories needed for our classrooms. We are getting ready for the opening of school. We have a lot of projects that went on, but we certainly thank our custodians and maintenance staff for doing a great job. Secretaries and administrators have been back. I know we had the Saints and Mariners days, and we're very successful with students getting back and getting their supplies and lockers and things like that. Students are coming in on September 4th. In the following opening schedule, this week, Wednesday, opening kickoff at the Performing Arts Center for all staff. And then August 31st is professional development for teachers. And then first day is September 4th. Board members are invited to attend the Welcome Back meeting at the Performing Arts Center at 8 o'clock on the 29th. We do have 2 new administrators here tonight, and I wanted to introduce them real quickly. A new principal at Palms Elementary is Wanda Grunewald. Wanda, would you please stand? So Wanda's here, so let's give her a little round of applause. Thank you. And we have our new assistant principal and athletic director at Marine City High School, Chris Ming is here. Chris? So they have been here for a few weeks getting ready and very excited, and we're excited to have them on board. We have finished a lot of hiring. All the staff teaching positions are filled, and we do have several part-time parapro type positions that are still on board this week, and we hope to get those cleaned up and finished up this week, ready for the start of school. We do have the sinking fund renewal for the district coming up on election on November 6th, and we also have 3 board member seats up for election. 6 candidates running for the 3 seats, Jim Bewer, Roy Kletcha, Mike McCartan, Jean Frank, Amy Murphy, and Michelle Metapetipin are running for the board. And that's my report.
Thank you. Move on to the bullying report.
Yes, this is a new requirement from the state in regards to our anti-bullying policy that we passed back in the winter. And so these are the incidents that happened this last year, 11-12, in the school. And you can see not too many. Of course, any incident is obviously something that we would like to prevent. So we have a good program in place. All of our schools are participating. And we're glad about that, and this is what's required under our policy and under state law to report this at the board meeting every year. So that's what that is.
Questions or comments for Dr. Green? Mr. Beaver?
Since we've been reporting this, have those numbers gone up, down?
You know, I don't think that we've got that data exactly, but I think anecdotally we would say that we've gotten better with preventing bullying over the last few years.
Okay.
Mr. Folsky?
Does this report goes to Lansing then?
You know, it has to go to the board, and
Right.
I don't believe that it goes to Lansing, although we do have a system in place, and actually there's a reporting system, so it's a part of that. So
Okay.
we've actually been putting this to Lansing the last few years,
Right.
and now it's just that you have to report it publicly at a board meeting.
Okay.
Other questions? Thank you, Dr. Green. Moving on to the school improvement and annual report. Mrs. Tennis, what again?
Good evening once again. You know, school is looming on the horizon, and this is a great opportunity for us to reflect. So we're going to do a little bit of both. We're going to look back at last year, and then we're going to look forward to the coming school year. So this is a quote that I've used before. It's one of my favorites. Greatness is not a function of circumstance. Greatness, and I would argue student achievement, is largely a matter of a conscious choice and discipline, neither of which are easy, but we're definitely committed to both. All right, so our vision, just to contextualize this, the East China School District, all of us together, will effectively prepare students for post-secondary education and experiences by all of the following: building a culture of excellence and high expectations, providing rigorous academics with an aligned curriculum and awesome instruction, challenging and supporting students, cultivating partnerships with parents and community members, embracing technology and innovation, and supporting a variety of co-curricular activities. So those are definitely some of our conscious choices. All right, within our East China structure then, what are our 4 goals? And these are ones we've had for a number of years. They're broad district goals. They are to improve student achievement, to increase and improve the use of technology in education and operations, improve and stabilize the budget situation, and improve communication, both internally and externally. All right, so if we look back, Goal 1 achievement at a district level, some things that we've been working toward this, some conscious choices and discipline we've been making. Our emphasis has laser-like focus on continuously improving MEP scores, MME, and ACT. We continue to implement the requirements of the new Common Core state standards. And as I mentioned before with our summer school, that's just part of our interventions. We really are looking at a variety of systems to support students who are struggling or who need additional time and support. Last year, we provided over 1,000 hours district-wide to students in need. Obviously, summer school and before and after school interventions played a large role in that. What about curriculum? We implemented Reader's Workshop K-6 last year. We started planning for our new STEM program at the middle school. We worked very hard to integrate technology in many facets of our classrooms, continue to work, revise, and expand common assessments, and continue to review and analyze the new Common Core state standards. Professional development. There's research that says that the content is important, but the proficiency of the teachers in delivering that content is just as important. And so last year we had continued PD with the smart boards, particularly with our middle and high school teachers. We started STEM training this summer, a whole host of integrated professional development tied to Reader's Workshop, PD related to Common Core state standards, and continuing really to learn how to most effectively use data to direct what we're doing in classrooms each and every day. So what are some milestones, things that I commend our teachers and principals and staff for working toward? Top to bottom list, you may have seen that in the paper. It's also at the My School Data profile. All East China school districts that are represented on the list are in the top half of the list. Additionally, 3 schools are in the top 10 percentile of schools across the state. Those buildings are Palms, Pine River Elementary, and St. Clair High School. You know, it's not every day you get a phone call from MDE with good news, and that happened this summer. They called to let us know that 2 of our buildings had been identified as reward schools. Reward schools are selected for either increased achievement or for outstanding achievement. We had 2 buildings that were recognized, Palms and Marine City High School. That's not the only milestone that we can be proud of. Adequate yearly progress. All of our elementary schools, both of our middle schools, St. Clair High School and Marine City High School all made adequate yearly progress. So congratulations to the staffs at all those buildings. EdYes report card grades. This is a reporting system that the state of Michigan has had for a number of years. Palms earned an A. All of our other elementary schools were credited with Bs. Our middle schools and Marine City High School and St. Clair High School earned C. One thing to note, the EdYes report card grades are generated by student achievement, and our report card grades dip slightly due to the increased expectation in the MEP and MME scores. So if you're wondering why do those report card grades look slightly decreased, it's because of the new cut scores. All right, another achievement that we need to celebrate. Last year, we had a successful on-site review at Bell River Elementary tied to Title I, where we had 2 reviewers from the Michigan Department of Education come on site and thoroughly review every aspect of the Title I program at Bell River Elementary, and they passed with flying colors. Also, Eddy Elementary School Improvement Plan and Title I Plan also passed with flying colors. So those are 2 achievements of which we can be very proud. Goal 2, communication. What were some endeavors tied to this goal? Parent involvement continues to be huge. We're looking at a whole host of ways to get parents in and to provide good communication to them. Parent Connect is definitely a very active, viable vehicle. Parents are checking that regularly. We're using websites, school messengers, blogs, proto pages. A lot of different avenues are being used with communication. We continue each year to do an annual parent survey, which is done at parent-teacher conferences, and that's great data that we've used to change everything from how we communicate to parents to what kind of information we give them. Here are our parent-teacher conference attendance information. 96% of our parents attended elementary conferences, 77% at middle school, and 69% at our high school level. And that trend is very much in keeping with what it's been the last several years. What about technology? With our technology bond passage, we have been very fortunate and able to have a lot of resources to help us implement technology in classrooms. So smartboard implementation in secondary classrooms, and now we have smart boards in every K-12 classroom in the district, which is something that's really awesome. We've also continued to focus on data disaggregation and analysis using Achieve Data Director, and again, using technology in very innovative ways to really improve the quality of instruction in our classrooms. Goal 4, improve budget, which our financial times definitely have been very challenging of late, and things that the district has done. Continuing to use our East China Endowment Fund. Those supporter grants are used very effectively and are most appreciated. Continuing to look at efficiencies within operations and continue to control spending as much as possible. All right. Coming soon to our website are our district and building annual reports, the contents of which are actually dictated by state law. So if you're on our website and you're looking, here are some things you're going to see. There's a cover letter for a district in each school. There's a data report. The cover letter will contain information about our AYP status, the process for student assignments to buildings, core curriculum access, description of any specialized schools, and a status report on school improvement. Additionally, there's a whole data file that's connected. So if parents want to go on and look at the annual report and look at the data for their school, it will be contained within the annual report. Everything from achievement to attendance to graduation rates for our high school. All right, so that was a very quick look back at last year. Now we're going to look forward at this year with school improvement. You may be aware of the tremendous amount of work that goes into not just writing the school improvement plan, but actually implementing. And it's the implementation, the devil is in the detail. And so each school improvement plan must have mission, vision, goals, a data profile, and needs assessment. And I would say the one area that we've really demonstrated improvement on is becoming very adept at using data to make decisions and to drive what it is we're doing in our classrooms. Within each goal, there has to be an objective, research-based instructional strategies, timeline, and resources. There's that measure of progress, our data targets, parent involvement, and professional development. So there are levels of school improvement that are required by the state of Michigan, district improvement, and then building level. So at a district improvement plan, we have 5 academic goals. All students will be proficient in reading, writing, math, science, and social studies. Then we have 5 core strategies which are in common across all content areas, and there they are. Research-based professional development, research-based best practice instructional strategies, interventions, data analysis, and there's that innovation in technology. Okay. So then, if I look at our building school improvement goals, how do they tie in? They have many, many aspects in common. The 3 common goal areas across all of our schools are reading, writing, and math. Then I put an example of an objective, and a data target. So they typically read something like this. Math proficiency, as measured by the Math Meet, will reach 90% or increase by 2 percentage points during the 2012-13 school year. The objectives and data targets are very objective, they're very measurable, which is great because it allows us to see if we're hitting our target. And if we are, we can celebrate, and if we're not, then we can reflect and analyze and figure out why we're not. Strategies also must be embedded within the elementary and middle school goals. And again, here are the ones, when I reviewed the district, all the building school improvement goals, here were the commonalities. High quality professional development, effective instructional strategies. There's that using data to target instruction, and also using data to really look at specific groups of students, whether it's a gender issue, where there's another subgroup of students that need support. Implementation of specific instructional strategies, and then reaching students with mentors and/or interventions. You'll notice again, if we look at our high school goals, great commonalities between elementary and middle school. So common goal areas across our high schools, proficiency in reading, writing, and math. Then there are building specific goals as well, such that target science and/or subgroups. Again, at our high school level, the objectives and data targets must be very, very specific. At the high school level, the MME and the ACT college readiness become the benchmarks and are duly noted here. Again, commonality strategies, professional development, great instruction, using data, implementation of a specific data analysis skill, that one's actually tied when you looked when we looked at ACT and we looked at how students were doing on some of the reading components and the science, realizing that that was a need that we needed to improve in our classrooms. Continuous school improvement. All school improvement plans are reviewed and updated on an annual basis. Student achievement is measured against a data target and strategies are revised accordingly, and we're really getting better at using data, and we're very focused on using data very specifically, continuing to work to get feedback from parents in the community via formal and informal avenues. So what are our key indicators of progress? MEP, MME scores, ACT scores, and then we're also starting to look beyond our K-12 program and say, you know, what's going on once our students leave our doors? What's happening with attendance and completion of 2-year and 4-year post-secondary degrees? So our mission is the East China School District will work in partnership with parents, students, and the community to ensure that every child will learn successfully. And we're really using the vehicle of school improvement plans and particularly data analysis to help us get there. Any questions?
Questions, Mrs. Tenniswood? Mr. Bieber?
In the grades C, when they submit us those grades, did they give us indication why they were lower, or data that we can use to try to build those back up?
Yes. So the grades are premised on a couple of factors. One, there's a series of indicators that the schools go through, and we self-evaluate ourselves on 40 or 90 indicators. That's a part of it. But the largest chunk of the EdYes grades are tied to the MME or the MEP scores. And because of an increase in the cut scores, the proficiency levels dropped. And so basically, in order to get our report card scores back to where we'd like them, it's really focusing on the student achievement and increasing the proficiency levels on those tests.
On those tests. Okay. Thank you.
I'm interested in, I guess it's new for me, but the measure of success post-high school graduation and whether or not students complete 2-year or 4-year college. How will you go about doing that? Or
We are just, within the last 18 months, have started to get reports from the National Clearinghouse. So we're getting data that shows, for instance, the percentage of students, graduates, who went on to 2-year and 4-year institutions. And then we're starting to get longitudinal data, so we can pull data and say, okay, of the let's say 20% of students who went on to post-secondary, and that's low, it's much higher than that. 4 years later, how many of them graduated? And so it's one of those things where the data is giving us, I think, trends and patterns to start analyzing and looking at.
I assume that allows you to adjust curriculum related to college preparation or 2-year.
Yeah, and one of the things we're looking at as part of the ACT, students also have an opportunity to indicate, what do they think they need help on? And then at our graduate survey, that we ask that same question, now with post-secondary, so we should be able to align those 3 areas and get a really clear indication of where students felt very well prepared for post-secondary and areas that we need to improve upon.
If I can add a comment to that as well. You might have seen the article in the paper this last year that showed Marine City and St. Clair were the 2 top schools percentage-wise sending students on to post-secondary. St. Clair was number 1 in the county, and Marine City was number 2. And I think the percentage is right around 70%, somewhere close to that. And then the other thing we can see is how many of those students actually completed their freshman year, completed their sophomore year, and graduated within 5 years or graduated within 6 years of college, in college. Right. So there's a lot of great data that we can do, but we certainly were proud of the fact that our 2 high schools were the top 2 high schools in the county in regards to sending kids to college.
Mr. Fletcher.
That was kind of the question I was going to ask, echoing what Mike said. You stated that you look at 4 years, but you commented that you look at 5 and 6 as well, I take it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Since that's becoming a little more standard out there, I take it. Okay, gotcha.
And we also look very closely at that successful completion of the first year of college, because there's some research to show that students who make it through that first year successfully complete all years. And so that first year through is really it's a significant marker.
Gotcha.
And our percentage for both of our high schools was also very high comparatively on the completing of the freshman year of college. So that was gratifying. That means that they were prepared by us to go into college and do a good job in college.
Very good.
Thank you. I believe you've got the next item as well.
I do. Perfect segue, as we've been talking about college readiness. We're going to dip into student achievement status. So tonight I'm very pleased to present data from our most recent spring testing, both MME, the Michigan Merit Exam, and ACT. Just again, a quick context. We have a lot of different lenses of accountability, which we are working on achieving very high levels. At the federal level, it's AYP, state level, school improvement, and again, our continued measurement of student progress, definitely district indicators, including our common assessments, MEEP, MME, Explore, Plan, and the ACT. All right, so MME. Michigan Merit Exam components includes the ACT plus writing, the Work Keys Job Skills Assessment, which is further broken down into math, reading, and locating information. Additionally, there are Michigan-developed assessments, including mathematics, science, and social studies items. I thought it was important to note that, again, this past spring was the year that the State Board of Education adopted the new cut scores for each subject area. So those new cut scores do represent a significantly higher standard for student learning, which we are embracing. The new cut scores are intended to reflect a student's progress toward college and career readiness, both in terms of making sure that the MEEP and the MME are better aligned, but also making sure that if students are proficient on the MME and the ACT, that they have a better likelihood of being well prepared for college. So how did we do? Here's our snapshot, our single year snapshot, class of 2013. And you'll notice 63% of our students were proficient in reading, 56% were proficient in writing, 40% in math, 33% in science, and 54% in social studies. What's important when we're looking at our data is to do it through multiple lenses. So this is our snapshot of a single year. By itself, it's not enough. So then we take a look at, all right, if we look at East China School District, what's our trend over time? The trend we want is improvement. So you'll notice on the MME 3-year comparison, reading, the class of 2011 starts at the left up to the class of 2013 on the right. So all of our trend lines are positive over a 3-year trend. Reading over 3 years, we improved 3 percentage points, and so forth. One of the ones I'd like to highlight is our math. We've been working really diligently to align our math curriculum, and you'll notice over the 3-year period, we had a 15% increase in the number of students demonstrating proficiency on the MME. We also know that comparing ourselves against ourselves is not sufficient. We look at the trend lines, but also then we need to say, okay, how do students in East China School District fare against St. Clair County and against students in the state of Michigan? So on this particular graph, we're looking at the bright blue bars to the left, that those represent the proficiency levels of East China School District students. And so you'll note in every content area, we were above state and county averages, and some content areas significantly above state and county averages. It's interesting to note that when we look at the trend lines over time, I want to stay on this one, I went back and said over our 3-year trend, what was our average percentage of improvement? East China's was 9 percentage points over the 3-year if you average all the content areas. At the same time period, the state of Michigan's was 2 percentage points. So that tells me that our trend lines are going in the positive direction and that our student achievement is accelerating faster than the state level line. So that's also a nice comparison to make. However, we're never content just to measure ourselves against our local constituency. We also want to say what's going on across the state of Michigan. So for the past several years, these are our comparison districts that were selected based on somewhat similar demographics, and also I think Novi, because they're one of the highest achieving districts in the Oakland schools, and we wanted to have something that we really wanted to strive for. So again, East China is over to the left, so we compared ourselves to Grand Ledge, Novi, and South Lyon. And you can see our results are mixed. In some content areas, we had a really strong showing. In reading, we're in the ballpark. Writing, slightly below Novi and South Lyon. Math, That was the most interesting kind of differentiation amongst the three comparison district. So our progress or our achievement was far above Grand Ledge, even with South Lyon, but not where we'd like it to be where Novi was. So again, we're looking at ourselves and our students' proficiency through multiple lenses to make sure that we're holding ourselves to high enough standards and are working to achieve them. All right, so the ACT is one portion of MME, but it's important to pull these out as separate scores and take a look at them. So just a quick review, the American College Testing is an annual assessment given each March. Michigan is a state that administers it to all juniors. Prior to 2007, only college-bound students typically elected to take it. This assesses the national college readiness benchmarks in English, math, reading, and science. So a couple quick definitions. College readiness, ready to succeed in first semester credit-bearing college courses without remediation. Career readiness, ready to succeed in introductory technical career training courses, again, without any remediation. The benchmark scores. I think it's important to remember with the benchmark scores, they vary according to content area. So you'll note English, the benchmark score is 18. Science, the benchmark score is 24. So that's a good number to keep in mind as we look at our scores. So the benchmark score is defined as a minimum score needed on the ACT subject area to reasonably predict a 50% chance of attaining a B or higher, or about a 75% chance of obtaining a C or higher in a college course. All right, so this is kind of a combined snapshot. It's how we did this past spring on ACT in comparison to county and state. So again, you'll note in a chart that's very comparable to our Michigan merit exam results, East China students demonstrated higher levels of proficiency in every content area when compared to county and state proficiency levels. I think one thing to point out too are the composites. In order for students to be deemed proficient as a composite score, they have to reach the benchmark in all four of the content areas that are assessed on ACT. So then the question is, okay, so our snapshot, we look good when compared to the county and state. We've got a positive trend line, but what about what's been going on the last 3 years in East China School District? Is the trend the same? Do we have positive trend lines? What content areas are we the strongest in? So if you'll notice, this is organized chronologically left to right. So the bright green represents our most recent testing cycle. And again, some nice trends are appearing. Reading and writing, we had a slight dip between last year and this year, but over the 3-year trend line, some really improved student achievement. Again, math was definitely our area of strength over the 3-year period, as science and our composite scores have improved 10 percentage points over the 3 years. So much more significant number of our students were able to meet the benchmarks in all 4 areas tested. Improvement efforts. Because we know sustained attention and improvement takes a conscious choice and discipline. What are we continuing to do and have done in the past? We have curriculum committees that continue to be in the process of aligning K-12 curriculum to the new Common Core state standards, which reflect the career and college readiness expectations. Really looking at raising the rigor and the expectation in our courses so students are successful. Specifically, the K-12 math curriculum has been revised in order to help ensure students are prepared for Algebra 2 at the high school level, hopefully pre-calc and AP calc. Our school leadership teams continue to link data from the Explore plan and the ACT test to help teachers adjust their teaching to better meet student needs. We also have a Michigan merit preparation plan for 9th through 11th grade students embedded within classroom instructions with 2 key elements. Practice answering questions in the ACT format When our students take the ACT test, we want to make sure they're comfortable with the genre. It's a different style of test, and we want to make sure students have seen those types of questions before and are comfortable with the format. We also want to make sure that our classroom instruction and our curriculum has the appropriate content from the Michigan Merit Curriculum as well as the ACT College Readiness Standards. Principals also are really working diligently to meet with students, to review the results from the Plan and Explore and the AC test, to talk about the purpose of the ACT exams, to really motivate best efforts and remind students of key test-taking strategies. What are we going to continue to do? We're going to continue to analyze student achievement data to better direct teaching and curriculum, to identify gaps in instruction and gaps in content or curriculum. We're going to continue to use the data from the Plan, the Explore, and the AC test regularly to assist students and parents with learning and planning. And our curriculum committees will continue their work of really continuing to go back and examine the curriculum and professional development plans to make sure we've got great frameworks and structures for both students and teachers. So that was a brief overview of our student achievement status from both the Michigan Merit Exam and the ACT. Questions?
Questions, Mrs. Tenniswit? Mr. Ritchley?
For the composite, or I can't even say it, the composite scores for the high schools, what was the difference between St. Clair and Marine City?
I am very pleased to report that our achievement levels between both high schools are very, very comparable now. So when we look at our overall scores, I think they're within 2 percentage points now.
Okay, so St. Clair would be like at 24 and Marine City at 20.
Well, remember with our high school composite, it includes St. Clair High School, Marine City, and Riverview East. So it's all 3 high schools are included in that composite score.
Okay.
But I'm very pleased with the progress of both high schools, and that definitely we're closing the gap in achievement at both high schools.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions? Mr. Bieber?
Just a question, and it may reflect back to your previous presentation, and maybe Dr. Green could address it. Just in the RESA Career Academies, how do we classify those? They're not college-bound students, but yet they're going through cosmetology school or something like that. How do we look at that as a district towards upper education?
I think certainly a couple of different lenses. In the classroom, when students are taking our courses here in our high schools, every classroom we're really looking at what skills do students need either for employability or to go to college. And in many cases, those skills are one and the same. And certainly, if we have students, for instance, that are attending a tech program, a technology program at St. Clair County RESA, then those would be considered post-secondary experiences. They may not be going on to college, but they're definitely going on to post-secondary experiences and need that same kind of richness of experience and opportunity.
Okay,
And help.
thank you.
Ms. Folsky?
All this information given is going to be put on the website so the public can look at it and study it and
Yes,
digest
soon.
it? Because you went through it quick, this way if somebody wants to.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Ritchley?
Mr. Buer actually brought another question to my mind. Has there been consideration of our district moving into the middle college direction? Like the middle college, the thing that's put on by RESA?
I would say that over the past 2 years, 3 years, we've really been focusing our efforts within the district on increasing our AP course offerings right at within our high school located on site, as well as really upping our dual enrollment possibilities for students to offer them and afford them the opportunities to really work on attaining some college credit prior to graduating from East China School District.
Okay. How many AP classes I thought we decreased, or did we increase?
We're always working on getting numbers up. I believe we are currently offering, I have to go through the list.
Just
In
approximately.
I
terms
think
of
8,
numbers, in
I
terms
think.
of students, we've greatly increased our number of
Yes.
students taking AP. So we're in the 260-something between the 2 high schools, I
Oh,
think.
okay.
So,
Maybe the principals can help you out on that.
yeah, once we added that incentive a few years ago, that made it a lot more enticing for students to take AP.
But we've decreased the classes? Is that-
No, we haven't
Oh.
decreased the classes.
Okay.
Other-
Thank you.
Other questions? Thank you, Mrs. Denniswood. Move on to our next item, which is the interim superintendent. You know, as we discussed at our July meeting following the acceptance of the resignation of Dr. Green, we had conversation about pursuing the role of an interim superintendent that would take us from October 1st, when Dr. Green essentially leaves, at least to January 1st. And as we discussed there, the logic of that is that there is an election in November, and it seemed that the new board coming in should make the long-term decision about the position of superintendent. At that meeting, I asked and received your permission to pursue with the assistant superintendent, Mrs. Knuth, her interest in assuming the role of interim superintendent. Mrs. Knuth has been in the district since 2001, and in, as everybody knows, a variety of roles, including teacher, assistant principal, and currently as the assistant principal. She has agreed in principle to take on that responsibility. However, we do not have an agreement in place, and so what I would like tonight is a motion that would authorize me to pursue an agreement with Mrs. Knuth for the role of interim superintendent effective October 1st, 2012, with that agreement to come back to a future board meeting.
So moved.
Been moved by Mr. McNamee,
Support.
by Mr. Koenig-Bauer. Now, comments or questions? Mr. Ritchley.
I was under the understanding at the last meeting that we were going to discuss it further here. I didn't know that we were going to be voting on it.
Well, it's up for discussion now. I guess I'm hesitant to go ahead and enter into discussions about an agreement if this board is not, it wishes to pursue a different candidate. So that's what we were going to discuss. If you would, if the board would prefer to move in a different direction, we can do that. Otherwise, I think it's important that the position be named and be in place in sufficient time to have school started in an orderly fashion, and obviously October 1st is very close. So are there concerns or thoughts that you have, Mr. Ritchley, you'd like to share?
Well, that's not that I don't believe that Mrs. Knuth can do the job, or that she's the right person for the job, but I think that there needs to be a vote on a written contract rather than assumptions. And
just to be clear, the written contract will come to this board for its vote at the next meeting.
So what I understood the motion to be was to authorize Mr. McCartan to talk to Mrs. Knuth about a written agreement. So this is just authorizing Mr. McCartan to talk to Mrs. Knuth about becoming this interim superintendent. Then the agreement would come before the board at the next board meeting.
But that still doesn't make any sense. I think before we, the other thing that I have a problem with as well is the fact that we're going to be looking for another assistant superintendent. And I think that if...
I don't believe that was in this motion.
But that was written right here.
Well, those are notes to board members to consider if in fact this board ultimately does agree to an arrangement with Mrs. Knuth, then there will have to be some discussion about the backfill of her position. Her current duties and responsibilities are not going to go away the day she assumes the interim superintendent role. So I don't have a proposal on that. I would think it would be appropriate once Mrs. Knuth is in place to have conversation about what is an appropriate backfill and for how long. In my mind, it's important to at least get us to January 1st so that the next board can have deliberations and thoughts about how it wants to proceed in the long term. So this is...
Well, I agree, but I think, like Mrs. Tenniswood said before, the devil's in the details, and I think in this case, we need details before we vote on things. I mean, if we're United States Congress, we can vote on things.
With all due respect, Mr. Ritchley, I did not want to pursue details with Mrs. Knuth prior to this meeting if, in fact, it is not the wish of the board for me to pursue an arrangement or an agreement with her. So all I'm asking for is the authority to pursue an agreement which will come back to this board for its ultimate decision. There is no agreement.
But didn't you say that you received permission at the last meeting, which I don't think was correct? But if if you did, then wouldn't that have given you the authority to do that then?
No, I understood the permission that the board gave at the last meeting was for, to pursue the principle of an interim superintendent, and that the desire would be that if somebody was available internally, that that would be a preferred option. At that time, there had been no discussions, so I felt that the most that I could do was to ascertain whether or not there was the interest internally by the assistant superintendent for the position. I did that. The interest was expressed, and so now I'm coming back and reporting to this board that there is an expressed interest by the assistant superintendent. If there's still agreement by this board, then we will pursue an arrangement or an agreement to come back to this board for its ultimate resolution.
Okay, well, I cannot in good conscience vote for a contract that's not written yet.
I'm just
without-
going to say one other thing here. This is not a contract. Mr. McCartan's motions, or his suggestion is to authorize him to pursue Mrs. Knuth as an interim superintendent. So that means that he would sit down with her and they would talk about a contract. Then the contract would come back before the board 2 weeks from now at the board meeting. Then you would vote on the contract. That's how that would work. So you can't develop a contract until you sit down and talk with the other person. He's asking for permission to sit down and talk with the other person.
Right.
Mr. McNamee has...
Yes, at the last meeting, there were two things that came up. One was, as you've indicated, Mr. McCartan, there was the question about exploring with members of the administration, the present administration, the various assistant superintendents, et cetera, any interest in the position. It was also offered to the board that if they had any interest in suggesting anybody, then of course they also had that right. And I've not been advised that anybody else introduced to you who was designated by this board at the last meeting to search this out. I don't, unless I'm wrong, I don't know that was anybody else suggested to you to also investigate this process in terms of being our interim superintendent.
No.
Okay, so now what we've done is, we've done exactly what we said we were going to do. We've talked to Mrs. Knuth, who is the assistant superintendent, and we've asked her to engage in a dialogue with us through you to develop a contract that will be presented to us at the next board meeting. If we were to follow some other course, then that would mean we can't talk to Mrs. Knuth about a contract, because the way we would have nothing to negotiate, nothing to discuss, and then we would be, our next board meeting is September 20, or no, September 10th, right?
11th or 12th.
So then we'd have about 3 weeks after that, then to vote. We'd have to present it at that point, and then we'd vote on it in October, whatever that meeting is, and I think that's a little later in the month, which would be we'd already be without anybody to really run the ship. So, saying those things, I think that basically all we're doing is exactly what we said we were going to do, and there's no other treatment that we're giving this.
Other members with comments? Mr. Ridgely?
For another issue that I had was it says that it will be effective October 1st. That doesn't make any sense. We'll have two superintendents. Am I correct in saying that?
Mr. McCartan, could I please? I think, Mr. Ridgely, what you're suggesting is that since Dr. Green's leaving and he has earned this vacation pay for those 9 days, that we now are to deprive him of that vacation pay in violation of not only the contract but the federal law, but or in the interim, we don't have a interim superintendent for 9 days, if that's what you would prefer. But those are the only two options available to us from your suggestion. I don't see it.
First of all, what you have to look at is that he could get the vacation pay just from leaving anyway. I mean, that doesn't make any sense why you're saying that you don't have to stay for that amount of time for that, to get that. I mean, that, I don't get what you're talking about.
Yeah, and you know, there's so many times I don't have a clue as to what you're talking about, and this is just one of them.
Let's stay on point here. The motion is to come back at a future meeting with a contract, I guess, or an agreement, maybe an addendum to a
And the
contract.
date is not in the motion. The motion just suggests that authorizing Mr. McCartan to pursue an agreement with an interim superintendent, Keitha Knuth.
No, it says right here, a board member would need to make
That's not the
a
motion.
That's
that
not the
he
motion,
gave.
Mr. Richley.
That he made his own motion. This is a board member motion, that's not it. So we can make it October 10th. I mean, essentially, Mrs. Knuth is going to be in charge if I'm not in attendance. So either way, it doesn't, really, it's not a important point.
But I
The
think it
important
is.
point is to authorize, if you're going to authorize Mr. McCartan to pursue an agreement with Mrs. Knuth.
I'll call the question. Thank you.
Question called. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Mr. Richley, no. Last item is the monthly board calendar. You have it before you. Nothing else to come before us. We stand adjourned. Thank you all.